or there was like one day a year where I think it was specifically black students would take a step back and let everybody have like a day and see like, well, this is what it's like when minorities are missing, and then they do like a off-campus event or something.
What?
And they wanted students to leave, or white faculty or white people to leave college to stay.
What type of day is that? What? A day where like all the black students on campus just somehow disappear? That's kind of weird. I don't think I would want to participate in that.
Debate if wokeness has gone too far or not.
Okay, my earlier undefeated conversation topic was that wokeness has obviously gone too far because I think progressives... Obviously.
Okay.
Slow down. Obviously, wokeness has gone too far because progressives are really bad at engaging other people in conversation topics. I think that there's like way too much of like a ideological orthodoxy that's like enforced around like any area that progressives get their hands on. Go.
Okay, so I'm less interested in making any sort of, I guess, like positive argument. I'm just going to say that I think you're basically the one putting forward the positive argument that like, this has gone too far. I'm not even going to make any prescriptions as to that. I'm just going to say I think that premise is entirely false. And the biggest problem that I have with this conversation is that can you concretely define what you mean by wokeness?
Yeah, so I think that progressives, through a lot of arguments surrounding, have you ever heard of the paradox of tolerance?
Yes, that if you're too tolerant of intolerance, you're going to create a society like Nazi Germany because you're going to let it be overrun by people who would take advantage of that.
Exactly. That through that argument of the paradox of tolerance, progressives have essentially created the system that allows them to get rid of all dissenting opinion, because the dissenting opinions themselves represent like a threat to discourse or democracy or woke values or whatever.
Okay.
This is a crazy, bro. This is a crazy, crazy video because, as y'all know, the person I'm reacting to, his name is Destiny, and he's more so, they call him more so on the left-leaning side. I don't know what side he really is really on, but that's like the stigma with him. He's left-leaning, he argues for that. So the fact that he made a video saying wokeness has gone too far, maybe it must have gone too far, bro. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know much about like the categories. Like, I can't really sit here and debate it. I'm not gonna lie, this is not my area of expertise. But bro, it's insane how like people who are like, I guess, more so left leaning are now have like conservative beliefs. Like, this is a conservative belief. It's just insane how like life is changing so fast.
That's like the specific thing I'm kind of like pointing at.
Okay, can you give me an example of like wokeness run amok that you think is problematic, or if it were to become like a broader social trend, would be some sort of social contagion?
Yeah, so sure. So some of the things that I was kind of looking at earlier, so on the macro level, it's like the rigid enforcement of like progressive values, and if there's any deviation, you get bucked by the system, or you get like, excised or whatever. For micro examples, I would say that Brett Weinstein at Evergreen College was an example of this.
Can I stop you? What do you mean by bucked by the system?
So if you're in school, people will try to like cancel you or get you kicked out. If you're like a faculty or administrator, people will ask for your resignation or make it hard for you to work. If you're a researcher, people won't want to work with you or publish your stuff like that.
Okay.
Bro, that is low-key insane. Like, if y'all really think about it, you could be like an esteemed scientist, but if you have a belief that's not even a bad belief, it's just a different belief, other than the one that's like widely accepted in what he's referring to, you can literally, like, people will want you to resign. Even though you can have like the cure to diseases in your head, they will want you to resign because of your, I guess, semi-political beliefs. That is insane. That is low-key insane. Like, dang.
Threats to livelihood is
yeah,
what
basically,
you're
yeah. Lots of cultural pressure, lots of social pressure. Sometimes direct like pressure from staff, but lots of social and cultural pressure.
Okay. And then
so like I think Brett Weinstein at like Evergreen College was like a pretty good example of that.
Okay. Why?
Where I think Brett's arguments were, even if you disagreed with them, I think they were entirely reasonable.
What were his arguments?
He felt like, are you familiar with the Evergreen College situation?
Yes, I am, but I'm interested in hearing your characterization of it. So why don't you explain it since you brought it up?
Okay. I learned all about it in the Red Pill community, shit test and everything. So that's
okay,
good.
nice.
Okay,
sounds good. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So my understanding was that traditionally at this school, there were days, or there was like one day a year where I think it was specifically black students would take a step back and let everybody have like a day and see like, well, this is what it's like when minorities are missing, and then they do like a off-campus event or something. And they wanted to switch it up where they were saying,
what type of day is that? What? a day where like all the black students on campus just somehow disappeared. That's kind of weird. I don't think I would want to participate in that.
White students to leave, or white faculty or white people to leave college this day for, I don't even know what the justification given there was, but I think Brett sent out an email where he was disagreeing, and he was saying, like, I think it's a bit different when you're asking white people to leave. I don't agree with this. I don't want to partake in this. And through that email being published and then disseminated to the student body, people got this idea that there were a lot of ideas, but basically people started to show up at his class outside. They were, I don't know if I say threatening him, but they were like screaming at him, shouting at him. They really wanted to fight over him being like racist and stuff like that. And eventually it blew into a thing where, I don't know if he ended up settling with the college before he left or whatever, but he basically left the college because of all the pressure.
Yeah, I know about this, unfortunately, because he has taken himself on a media parade.
Yes.
And will go on to any podcast that will let him rehash the story, even though it literally happened forever ago.
Yep.
I like how I like how she didn't even acknowledge like the wrongdoing that was done to him. The fact that he didn't want to leave college for whatever bizarre day this is. What a day where for one the minorities disappear. I don't really know what that is. And then another day where they made the white people leave campus and he didn't want to leave campus. And this is like a real thing. Like they were literally harassing him. And I like the fact that she didn't even acknowledge that at all. She just completely said, yeah, it happened forever ago, and basically just wanted him to silence himself. It's just funny how like she just completely skated over the fact that this man was literally harassed because he didn't want to be segregated on his own campus. That is insane.
Do you know what the contents of those emails were that he said in response to his disagreement to the, like, they free of white people on campus or whatever?
Yeah, we actually, I read all of them, I think a couple months ago, again, because we brought it up, but I don't remember, I can't recite it word for word.
Okay, I can't either, but I do remember that what he did say to this organizer was that he would be happy to provide a
forum for discussion or something, I think, or?
Yes, do you know what the topic was going to be?
What was the topic? I don't remember.
Race and how it coincides with evolutionary. Like,
oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, so he was basically going to, he was interested in exploring like race realism.
Okay. He's an evolutionary biologist. It's an appropriate topic for him to explore, right?
Right, but given the context of why he's bringing up that he was interested in exploring that subject, when the controversy has to do with, I guess, disagreement about social justice strategies or whatever, like, what do you think the implication is when he's like, I would be happy to educate people on race realism?
I think it's literally perfect. It's within his wheelhouse of what he's educated to do. If you like,
okay, y'all. If you're anything like me, you have no idea what race realism means. But if you do know, bravo. So let's look it up. Race realism definition. Race realism. It's called science. Basic racial realism says that though race is neither biologically nor real. Oh, he says basic racial realism says that though race is neither biologically real nor socially real, it is all real. It is real all the same. So what I'm getting from this is that race is not a real thing. Like race is technically not a real thing, but it is a real thing. I don't know. I'm still a little confused, but hey, this is not my field of expertise.
One of my biggest frustrations as like an online debater content creator is people like me end up getting tasked with debating these like esoteric or very difficult to navigate scientific fields, and nobody from those scientific disciplines will ever enter into any of these discussions to give their opinions. So if somebody that actually has a background in the field wants to like enter into that field and give a discussion on race realism, me personally, I'd rather somebody like, well, I don't know now, but back then, Brett Weinstein talking about race realism and evolutionary psychology, I'd prefer that to like, you know, Nick Fuentes or somebody talking about it.
It's a pretty low bar to clear. I'd hope that it was maybe a little bit higher, but okay, that's
well,
fine.
I mean, Jordan, I'd prefer him to like Ben Shapiro talking about it, I guess, yeah.
Another low standard. All right. So
well, it's conservatives. The standard's not very high, okay? I'm trying my best here.
All right, so...
Like I told y'all, bro, he's not, he doesn't consider himself a conservative. He just said it. He is not, and it's crazy that he's arguing this. Like, society is really in a weird place right now. Like, it's crazy because he's having conservative takes. The take that wokeness has gone too far, that's a conservative take. And he's obviously not one. Like, it's crazy.
But do you think that, like, no offense to Brett, or take offense, I don't want Brett to do like a workshop on like, let's talk about like the systemic injustice that appears in society and how we can like alleviate some of the pressures that minorities feel in like America. Like, he's an evolutionary biologist. What is he going to say to that? Like, that's just like a virtue signal. Like, oh, let's like, I brought a slideshow from YouTube.
I know, but like, I think that there's something in between this huge virtue signal and then ramping it all the way up to, like, I'd be interested in discussing race realism with you and the idea that there may or may not be superior racial genes, even though that's junk science. To me, it's no different than if he had brought up, what is it when they, like skull shapes? Phrenology. If he said, I would be happy I'm not happy to participate in this, like, anti-racism exercise. Whether or not it's good is subjective, obviously. And you can have his disagreements with that. But then to follow that up with, but I would be happy to discuss, what did you just say it was? Phrenology.
Well, but the phrenology is by definition.
With the black students of this.
Yeah, sure. Phrenology is a bunk science. But, like, look at where we're at now, okay? I'm glad you picked this topic because it illustrates my point perfectly, right?
Okay, perfect.
We've made a justification for an evolutionary biologist to not talk about evolutionary biology because it's, like, insensitive.
No. He's free to talk about...
Bro, that's what she just said, though. Like, think about it like this. This is literally his job to talk about all these things. Evolutionary biology. What I'm getting from that is he studies how we as humans evolve, what traits are the best, which traits survive the longest, what traits in us are the strongest, the weakest, the coolest, just he studies traits in humans and which one pushes us forward and which one pulls us back, I guess. So that's literally his job. Like, that's the clearest definition of his job I can give. And she just argued that because he was basically talking about something that would be deemed as, insensitive, such as I think he was talking about race traits or whatever. I don't know the exact traits. I have to look into it. But because he was talking about something that was deemed insensitive, he shouldn't be allowed to talk about that given the context of what was happening socially. Mind you this, bro. This is literally everything he's arguing. He's saying that people have been getting pulled from their jobs or pulled from their livelihood because of social events, despite how good they are at their jobs. Like, he's an evolutionary biologist. But because things are happening socially, he's not able to conduct evolutionary biology at a university that studies. Like, do you get what I'm saying, bro? Do you see the disconnect?
Got it. But I'm also free to scrutinize the implication by which, like, why is he demanding it? This is now the time to bring it up.
Well, because people want him to have a conversation about, like, race and stuff, right? So wouldn't this be, if he was ever going to do it, like, that would be...
I think it's a little bit unfair to characterize it as, like, oh, people just want to have a discussion about race. Like,
that's true. They didn't want to have a discussion about race. They wanted to force white people off the campus using social pressure for
right, and
reasons.
I'm not even going to defend that or discuss it or whatever, but I think, like, the situation is a little bit more nuanced than, oh, he wasn't allowed to, he got fired or, like, whatever.
I don't think he actually got fired. I think he ended up settling with the school and leaving with some payoff package. But obviously everybody wanted to leave, the students,
exactly.
and I think the faculty as well.
People think that it starts and ends with, like, oh, they, and he talked about this. Like, I listened to his interview on Joe Rogan where he said that, he is a Jewish man and he is uncomfortable being told that within a country that he wants to live in, there are spaces that he is not welcome in because it's happened historically to Jewish people, which is a completely defensible point. What is indefensible to me and what he conveniently leaves out is not only did he voice his disagreement, which is completely fine. We can argue and disagree about, like, which strategies about anti-racism and social justice are best and appropriate. The umbrage I thought people were taking up with him was that he was saying, oh, but I would be happy to give a lecture on race realism, which is essentially the new version of...
Well, but hold on, what did you think he was going to say? Was he going to say, like, welcome, today we're going to study the warrior gene and why black people are predisposed? Like, did you really think that was going to be, like, his presentation? Like, we don't even know what the presentation would have been.
What? I know. It would have been very interesting to hear all about...
But we never got to hear it.
Race realism.
Well, there are things you can talk about for, like, I'm sure as an evolutionary biologist, he'd have something to say.
But do you
maybe his whole presentation...
think that he was sad that he didn't get to give that presentation? Do you think that he was really making that offer to give that lecture? Because
it sounded like the offer would have been
people.
that, like, if you want to have a day where we discuss issues that are relevant to minorities, here is an issue that I can discuss that's relevant to my particular scientific discipline, which I think is what would make the most sense.
The study of how they're inferior to white genes.
How do you know that's what he was going to say? Maybe he's going to say black people were superior.
Yeah, maybe he was.
Maybe wokeness has gone too far. Maybe wokeness has gone too far. As I'm listening to this young woman talk, she's about probably my age, probably a little older, probably a little younger, I don't know. But I'm just like, wow. In order to be a professor at a university, you need to have a PhD. What does it take to get a PhD? You need to go to 4 years of undergrad. You need to get your master's degree. And while you're getting your master's degree, you need to you need to basically master the subject that you got your undergrad in, or master it, show a mastering of the subject by having a year-long research project or thesis. Then after that, in order to get your PhD and become a doctor, have the doctor in your name, you need to have 7 years of research and have a breakthrough in the field that you're trying to get your PhD in. Then you become an associate professor. And after becoming an associate professor, then after about 5 years, I think, you become a real professor. Here we are talking about a man who went through years and years of schooling in the same category, basically studying around 5 plus 7, at least 12 years studying this one subject, minimum. And you're telling this man that what he's trying to teach, the area that he literally spent a decade over mastering, is insensitive. Like, you have a teenage girl telling this man that the subject that he spent a decade mastering is insensitive to teach. If that's what wokeness is, bro, like, I don't even know what to say. Like, that's insane to me. Like, I can't believe it. I really can't believe it.
We were deprived of an excellent lecture where he made that exact point.
Regardless, it's a college campus. Isn't this like where those types of conversations should be happening, with an actual evolutionary biologist rather than like whatever your local conservative group is or your local YouTuber?
I agree with that entirely, but
well, then what do you disagree with?
My disagreement is that doesn't meet the threshold to say that it's gone out of control. What you just went on to describe, in excessive detail, because he will not ever stop telling the story.
Well, I described it because you asked me for one example. That's one example. We can go through plenty others if you want.
I know.
That was the only thing, but
I think you and your audience know all too well that anecdotes,
what?
Data is not just the plural.
Sure.
Yes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, data is not the plural of anecdote. I understand. But when you start to get story after story after story after story,
is that story
some
after
of which
story, though?
It is story after story.
Oh.
So, one of the most recent really troubling ones, I'll do this last one and then we'll let the other guy jump in, and I'll let you respond to this. One of the most recent troubling ones to me, very troubling, very upsetting, was there was a study that was promoted, I think it was conducted at and then promoted by the University of Washington. And this was a study showing that puberty blockers were incredibly beneficial to minors when they were prescribed, and they checked for suicidality after the fact.
Okay.
And when they did this study, the university was shouting it from the rooftops, this is so great, we're helping trans kids, puberty blockers are amazing. People went back and they dug through the study and they're like, okay, well, when you actually look at it, it's actually a wash. It doesn't really help suicidality much at all.
It's like a hormone wash?
Stop. No, it doesn't help much at all, okay? We're not doing that.
Okay.
But when the university found this out, when they were internal emails got leaked when this was brought up, and they were like, okay, well, actually, it looks like this wasn't true at all, but we're not going to really talk about it publicly because people were so happy with the last headlines, it would be kind of shitty to announce now that it didn't actually do much at all. This was not verbatim, but this is more or less what the contents of the email were. Okay. And it's like, holy shit, well, now we're actually talking about scientific literature being published and promoted, and now we're talking about picking and choosing which scientific literature we want to promote based on the social agenda that it promotes. That's really scary to me. And there are more anecdotes, but go for it. I'll let you respond to that one.
Okay, I'm not even going to disagree that you can throw these anecdotes at me all day, but they will always just be that. They will just be anecdotes. Are we actually seeing a meaningful trend? And I mean beyond the scope of individual people.
Yes, we are seeing a trend. And I've touched on it on my channel, and the reason I don't touch on it too much is because at the end of the day, y'all, I'm not really exposed to every bad part of the world or every crazy woke trend. I'm not this is something I'm very, very new to. So, but I'm just going off of what I've noticed. When it starts to become socially unacceptable to exercise science, you're a professor in science and you're not even able to accurately display what you know because it may cause some social strife, then it's a problem. It's a real problem because this is not going to make the world better. When somebody comes a breakthrough cure or whatever, if it's socially unacceptable, if people don't like the fact that this cure is targeted towards men or targeted towards women, or it helps black people more than it helps white people, people are just going to pretend like it doesn't exist. And all I'm saying is, at some point, we need to step back and be like, you know what, maybe the world is going into a place that it won't help it. And this young lady, although I think she's extremely intelligent, I think she is refusing to admit that. She's trying her hardest to be like, no, the world isn't going like that. It's just anecdotes. It's just fake news. It's not fake news. People have this idea that it's always something to fight for. It's always something to fight for. You're always wrong. No, we're the new generation. No, it doesn't work that way. Sometimes things are good. Sometimes things are good enough. You don't have to change it. You don't have to banish or push out the scientist at the university because he didn't want to leave on a banned white people day. Come on, bro. Be for real. Like, you're not making a social movement by doing that. At least not a good one. But yeah, anyways, you want to see a part 2 to this or a part 3, 4, 5? Let me know in the comments. So far, Jojo, and I'll see you on the next one.